Get your Nougat knowledge ready for the next version of Android. Apple Music and Spotify are singing different tunes about subscriptions. Emoji can make you eat healthier, and a scarf that will make you invisible. All that coming up on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1546, recorded Thursday, June 30th, 2016. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to more than 100 job sites, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter with a free 4-day trial now at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. And by Zerto, virtual replication and disaster recovery technology that gives you the confidence to keep your business moving forward no matter what comes your way. Zerto empowers you to protect and recover your IT assets, move to the cloud, and know you're ready for anything. Get a free readiness assessment for your data center at confidencecio.com. And by Atlassian, unleash your team's potential with collaborative software tools like HipChat and Jira, which will enable you to work and communicate better together. Visit Atlassian.com to learn more. This is Tech News Today, the show where we like to talk about tech, all the stuff that's important today with people who have passion for technology. I'm Megan Morrone. Jason Howell is out this week, but joining me today is Sam Machkovech from Ars Technica. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, hello. I'm here to express my passion for technology.
Good. You always do. And that's why we like to have you. You express it in your stories on Ars Technica. Whenever you're here, you express it in your hair and your mustache or lack of mustache. That's why we love to have you on this show. I'll
have some patriotic garb on in the middle of the show. I'll do my best.
Patriotic garb?
We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see how crazy I feel. But let's get to it. There's lots of stuff to talk about today.
Okay. Well, I first need to offer an apology to all you Nutella freaks. Google has officially named the next version of Android, and it will not be called Nutella. It will be called Nougat, and it will be out later this summer. Google made the announcement on Snapchat, Twitter, and probably on Google+, but I'm not sure who checks that anymore. They didn't say if the name was part of the Pick the Name contest, which is sad to me. Another Bodie McBothface issue. Nougat, that's what you got. What did you vote for, Sam?
I wanted as many branded possibilities as possible. I feel like they don't do that as much, even though K for Kit Kat wasn't too long ago. Mm-hmm. But, Nilla Wafer, Now and Later. We could go Hippy Dippy Crunchy and go with Nutri-Grain. There's just nerds would have been really nice. Some, Android nerds. I think that might be a little too on the nose. But yeah, they didn't say what the poll results were, and they actually bothered making us think about that, which I found very interesting because they asked people on the internet to submit N-words, which, as we all know, is a really good idea on the internet. So my guess is they're never going to publish the total poll results of that. But, at the very least, whatever they're calling it is welcome. We're going to get some good stuff in Android Nougat. Most importantly, we're going to get that split screen feature that everybody else, particularly Samsung, has already beaten Google and Android to the punch on. That's going to be huge. Side-by-side apps is just going to be, especially now that we all have phablets, now that we all agree that 6 inches is not too huge. I disagree necessarily, but that's a thing. That's a popular thing. And just being able to have multiple things up so that I can pretend to pay attention to my Slack feed while I'm watching Orange is the New Black on the other side of my screen would be really nice. And then, VR, they're really setting the table for VR as a thing to come down the line. So there's more coming. What are you looking forward to in Android N, Nougat, Nilla, Nerd, whatever you wish to call it?
Well, sadly for me, I only look forward to what they're going to name it because I don't use Android tablet or an Android phone. So after they reveal the name and the cute little statue of the Android standing on the Nougat, which is what he's standing on now,
it's a weird logo. That doesn't look. It just looks like he's standing on some boxes of presents. It doesn't look. I feel like if it's going to be Nougat, there should just be like goo dripping out of his little not quite mouth. If we're going to really sell the nougatness.
Yeah.
So it just looks like he's stuck at a department store, like a little Christmas tree. Because he's green. He's got that Christmas tree kind of look to him already. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there we have the picture of it now. I mean, who likes that kind of candy? Nobody I know.
I like a nougat. I like
You
a
do?
Baby Ruth. I think nougat as an accessory to other flavor potential. You get your the whatchamacallit has always been high on my list. I guess if we get to Android W, I will hold my fingers that we get Android whatchamacallit because that'll be fun to say over and over and over.
Yeah, I still like your choice of Nutri-Grain. I mean, that would have, if we're getting an uproar over nougat, like what kind of, what kind of chaos would Twitter be in if they had chosen Nutri-Grain? I don't even want to think about it.
Well, let's start already getting ready for Android Oreo. I mean, that's literally the only thing you care about is the next snack name. So let's definitely double down on the O candy because Lord knows that's going to happen. Although maybe they'll switch gears and pick something healthy like Android orthodontics. Something that goes to the other side of the dark side of K. What the heck is that? Is that like a thing happening on the screen right there
yeah, that's the official statue.
headquarters?
That's the official statue of
That's
the Android
sad.
standing on Nougat.
That looks like something out of Silicon Valley. That's terrible.
I know. It's true.
Google.
It is
anyone
true.
Anyone who's just listening and not watching, it's just it's just because the sad face and two people are standing near it.
Mm-hmm.
Just hoping that perhaps something more interesting will pop out of it, I was going to say something weird. Just drop it.
Okay, let's move on. Spotify is claiming that Apple is using its App Store approval process as a weapon against them. This news comes from a letter Spotify sent to Apple's lawyers and obtained by Recode. The letter was also circulated to the U.S. Congress, where just yesterday, Senator Elizabeth Warren criticized Apple and Google and Amazon for anti-competitive practices. Now, Spotify's beef with Apple is the subscription service, which requires app makers to pay Apple a monthly fee of up to 30%. They applied to the App Store. Spotify applied to the App Store with their new app without using the subscription service, and that's why Apple rejected them. Now, app makers aren't forced to use the system, but I guess kind of they are forced to use the system if their apps aren't going to get in there. So, yeah, I mean, this is interesting because Spotify still has twice the amount of paying users that Apple does, and this is Apple's first year. It's their 1-year anniversary today, their 1-year birthday, and it sounds kind of anti-competitive. What do you think?
Well, I mean, they're clearly doing this in a PR stunt way. This has been the case for all subscription-based things through iOS for some time. I mean, this really began with the iPad and pushing sort of the magazine services. That's where it really began, where Apple's like, we're going to take a cut if you offer these items for sale a la carte, before really Spotify and these other services really took hold, when everybody had enough data to spare so that they could walk around using Spotify and similar services as a way to get media. So this has already been a thing. Apple has already said, you want to be part of our walled garden, you got to pay up. And they do have rules in place that will help for an app that's been around for a while. The idea being that if it's an annually renewing charge, that app makers will only have to pay 15% for the second year of a subscriber, as opposed to that 30%. And that was its sort of way of saying, all right, they're hooked on your service and they're hanging around here, so everyone wins. Let's keep people around and let's keep them hooked to Apple. That being said, it really matters for these companies to get those new subscriptions. That's the stuff that really makes these quarterly report kinds of companies really look stronger. That's the thing they want to push. They want to get all of those % of those first-year customers whenever possible. So if Congress is coming in and saying that Apple and Google are being anti-competitive, then it's a chance to go, all right, we have this little version of our app ready with a really obnoxious version of the sign-in. It's this crappy web UI version, not as nicely done as the baked iOS version. So everybody's getting sort of annoyed as a result. Users are getting annoyed. Apple's getting annoyed. Spotify's getting annoyed. But I just think that's a charge issue that's not going to go away. Apple's going to continue to be in the legal clear to say, give us 30% or get the heck out. And enough people are using iPhone that most of the companies aren't going to push back. Spotify's in a position to push back. It's interesting, though. We just saw some reports today about Apple and Tidal, Tidal, everyone's favorite music streaming service, in talks. The Wall Street Journal is reporting about possibly one being taken over by the other, assumedly Apple taking over Tidal.
Yeah.
What they've made it very clear that these are just very preliminary talks that may go nowhere. But the thing that says is somebody wanted to talk. Either Apple wanted to buy them out or Tidal's desperate to be taken over. And either way, considering both services are languishing in the face of the titan that is Spotify, there's a little bit of schadenfreude to it, of the two sort of like easiest targets to pick on in the music streaming world coming together and saying, hey, maybe our two crappy tastes can be even crappier together. I know people do like Apple Music the way it does integrate, but I do also know people who are aggravated by it. Megan, I believe you are one of those people, at least on some occasions, when it comes to Apple Music.
I am aggravated by it. I think the interface is weird and confusing, but I use it and I subscribe to it.
You're not totally in love with all the bubbles? You know, you just pop the bubble, and that's your favorite. You love Taylor Swift. Just pop the Taylor Swift bubble. It works great. What's wrong with that?
That was in Beats, but that's not in the newest Apple Music.
It was in the original Apple Music.
I liked, yes. Well, I haven't seen, I liked the Beats. Beats had the bubbles. I loved the bubbles. But if the bubbles are in the current version of Apple Music, someone needs to tell me where to find them because I liked those bubbles.
So you're basically your review when you go into iTunes. 5 stars, all the bubbles. Got it.
Exactly. Yeah, that Tidal news that just broke that could be a game changer, I think. And you say it's either Apple really wanting to buy them or Tidal desperate. It would be good to know which side of which one it is. Maybe both.
I would imagine there's desperation all over the place if they are sitting down and having that chat. And I really hope Kanye's in there just wreaking havoc. Because if the meeting is happening, he could just be as crazy as he wants, and the meeting's not going to stop. It's not like Apple Music's going to show up to a Kanye-affiliated meeting and just expect that to all go super smooth. So I'd love to be a fly on that wall.
Yeah, I mean, because Tidal has the people, Tidal has the artists. And they had that big presentation that was weird and wonderful, and then it's expensive, and people aren't really happy with it, and they have exclusives, but they don't last that long. So yeah, a Tidal Apple Music marriage would be. I think that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, if Tidal got its stuff together and just didn't crash when something big came out, then they might be in a way better spot. But you can't blow people's expectations once and expect them to go, oh, Tidal's going to fix that. People go to a service like that with that many famous names and expect it to just work. Like if Jay-Z's on it, clearly it's ready to run. He's a big deal. He has money. But it's deals like this that make it clear that just because someone is famous and invests in a thing doesn't mean it has all the technological infrastructure necessary to handle bazillions of people desperate for that new Kanye track.
Mm-hmm. Well, moving on in today's patent watch, the Next Web has spotted patent number 9,380,225 that might stop you from getting super annoyed at concerts. Apple might be developing a way to use infrared signals to prevent your iPhone camera from recording footage. An infrared emitter could be used at concerts or perhaps on the floors of Congress, where it could be beam encoded signals that would disable your phone from capturing video. What do you think about this patent, Sam?
It's going to be very easily overcome if anyone is paying attention. Every single thing like this just makes me think of a school teacher going, I'm going to stop my kids from using cell phones in class. That never works. All the kids are going to do is come up with some sort of crazy remember when kids were coming out with these text message tones that only children could hear because of the frequency of them? That's what kids do. They find ways to get around this stuff in like incredible high-tech ways. I don't see anybody doing anything further than finding the right spot to like put their thumb on in order to reject this sort of thing and to do all the recording. Now, as someone who loves going to concerts and hates the other human beings at them, I love the idea of people putting their phones away at a concert. Just experience it while you're there. Usually bands have a good photographer, if not a videographer, there to document it in a way that looks good. The photo I take from the very back of the show with 50 million heads in front, whether it's a club show or a giant concert hall, it's never going to be that good. So, and plus there's live streaming of concerts. There's just all kinds of ways to see what is happening on stage. Your stupid 3-year-old phone with a terrible low light sensor and that dinky little flash, I as an old man am happy for that to get off my lawn. But anybody who's actively trying to make people do that in a high-tech way, as opposed to artists who come in and say, listen, just put your dang phone away, or just take photos of the first couple songs and then put your dang phone away. That just, to me, makes more human sense. Concerts are a very human experience, and trying to do this sort of school teacher high-tech wizardry to stop people misses the point, insults the paying audience. and is just going to get worked around, and everyone's just going to be more annoyed and waste time anyway. So, I just remember there was a thing where people wanted socks. The idea was you're supposed to put your phone in a sock and then put it into a cubby when you got to a music venue. I think it was Megan Geis from Ars Technica who tried this out once. And it was just like having to take a smoke break if you really needed to check a text or something. It's stupid. It's all stupid. But I, as an old man, love when people put their phones away at concerts. So, yeah, we're gonna do things like we do in Seattle. Just furrow your brow at that guy who keeps holding the camera phone up like he's going to get that great shot. Just use that passive aggressive social pressure. That's what I vote for.
Well, it's not about the great shot, right? It's about I was here. I'm Snapchatting this. I'm better than you, right? That's why people are holding their phones up.
Oh, don't even get me started on all the dumb reasons why people do things with their phones. But yes, you're right. There's absolutely being able to do a selfie real quick. I think it's, people sharing that moment says stuff about the artist, says stuff about the venue. I don't think that's the enemy of these things. I really do think it's about interrupting that everyone filming the song. Like, no, the song's happening. Just enjoy it. Don't watch it through your screen. It's like recording your kid at everyone holding up their phone during their kid at the recital. Like, you know what? Your kid's right there. That is like the highest definition possible. I believe that was a really bad version of a Louis C.K. bit, but just watch it.
I've been there. I've been at many of those recitals, and it's true. So that's where they need this technology, not in the not in the floors of Congress, not in the concert hall, but in the
technology at children's recitals. I think could make the whole world better. That's a whole different tangent. I think we could go on for a million years with, though.
We could. But speaking of children, let's move on to our happy news of the day. A 10-year-old girl applied for a fellowship designed for computer science PhDs and experienced urban designers in France, and she won. Quartz reports that in her letter, the 10-year-old named Eva said, "The streets of Paris are sad. I want to build a robot that will make them happy again." She also did what many experienced coders are not as good at. She said she'd had some trouble with her programming so far, and she asked for help. So I think that's what won it for her. She'd been programming some Thymeo robots, and she said, I'm having a little trouble with my programming. So she got the fellowship, or one of the fellowships. She has a blog if you want to take a look at that, if you're an aspiring programmer of any age. It's in French, but she translated it to English for you, English speakers. This was also verified on Snopes, so in case anyone thinks it's made up, Snopes says it's not. What are your thoughts on this, Sam?
I am just looking into it. I do love that Snopes is now becoming a news outlet in terms of saying, like, you're not going to believe most of the stupid crap on the internet now, so we're just going to really clear this up for you. Lord help us if we ever find someone who busts through Snopes' BS filter and finds that something is a hoax. But I think that's great. I mean, just don't get me started on kids in STEM. It's just super cute. Yeah, good for her. Good job.
Good job, Eva. After the break, we'll cover some of Sam's favorite gaming news of the week. But first, let's take a minute to thank ZipRecruiter, the sponsor of this episode. If you need to hire someone and you keep putting it off because it seems like a Herculean task, then it's time for you to try ZipRecruiter. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites. And with ZipRecruiter, now you can. At ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to more than 100 job boards, including social media networks like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, all with a single click. Just post once and watch your candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. Search by skills, location, work experience, and more. ZipRecruiter's advanced matching technology delivers the most relevant candidates based on your criteria. ZipRecruiter offers optimized pages that look great on any screen. Add their unique mobile apply process for more visitors and applicants. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide, so no more juggling emails or calls to your office. You can add multiple users to your account. So find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 800,000 businesses and is trusted by hundreds of Fortune 500 companies. So whether you're hiring right now or you plan to hire in the near future, check out their blog for recruiting tips and hiring resources. Right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. Access millions of resumes on ZipRecruiter with thousands of new ones that are added daily. ZipRecruiter is the fastest way to hire great people. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT, and we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. So if you want to hear the same gaming news that everyone else is reporting, be my guest. But today we are going to cover some of the more offbeat stuff. Let's start with Inside, which, Sam, you call a beautiful puzzle platformer marked by unforgettable terror and fear.
Oh my goodness. I was so delighted when this video game landed in my inbox. This is not a giant AAA game by any stretch, but it does have a bit of a legacy. So it was back in 2010. That was sort of the peak of when Xbox 360 was hosting a lot of indie games. These really nicely polished, weird games that you could buy for $10 to $15 a pop. This was sort of a new movement, and now it's sort of become the norm. This idea of downloading a game that's kind of weird and independent instead of going into a store. Limbo was one of the best of this era from the year 2010. A side scroller that was smeared in charcoal blacks and whites, very haunting, very weird, very sad ending. It was about a little boy and a little girl, and it left things sort of open-ended, but you could see that it was sort of telling the story of a tragedy through a Mario-style run around and explore a world game where you're running side-scrolling left and right. The team who made that game has went into hiding shortly after to make their follow-up. And we didn't really hear much. We heard in 2014 that it existed with a tiny, tiny hint of what was to come. But it was last month, right before I went to Los Angeles for E3, that they said, hey, here's the game. It's done. Go ahead and try it out. We know you like this stuff. And I said, okay. And it was wonderful. I really don't like to give away this sort of thing. Because this is a game that really hinges on surprise and intensity and mystery. But it is fair to say that it is similar to Limbo in that you run around Mario style left to right, you jump around, you do some sort of basic puzzling, and that involves jumping on boxes, moving stuff around with a little bit of a physics engine, climbing around, looking for little hidden things. And ultimately, it's more about the beauty of an easy to traverse world than it is about being very complicated. This is a game that you can hand to most anybody who's held a video game controller in the past 15 years, meaning if you only like smartphone games, you might not like it. But you can run around, jump around, and everything looks beautiful. We have some screens here from my review. I didn't want to show the video because the very beginning of the game just starts you off with not knowing what's going on. And it's very powerful in that way, that the entire game uses no words, no explanations, no really good job of framing what the heck is going on and why you've appeared in a place. But inside, it's launched on Xbox One as of yesterday, and it'll be out on Windows computers, I believe, July 7th, next week. It's got this beautiful hand-painted dark kind of, it almost looks black and white, even though there are hints of color, wonderful rain and fog and lighting effects, and this incredible sound design. As you play through, you're this little boy who has no face, but he feels very alive because of all the work that's done, where you can hear his every step, his every tumble, his every gasp for air, his every catching his breath while he's hiding. There's lots of scary stuff around that is clearly something is out to get this little boy. You don't know what it is. And as you go along, you end up with a lot more questions than you do answers. Ultimately, I described it as the kind of mysterious sci-fi terror experience that's full of wonder and emotion that I think someone like J.J. Abrams should have to see before he goes back into making something else. It reminded me of the best stuff that he did, where he would pick emotion over plot. And if you're into that sort of sci-fi-ish terror fantasy experience where you're it's more about the discovery than it is about answering questions, you are going to love this experience. Beautiful game. Can't recommend it enough. It's $20 on Xbox One right now. It'll be on Windows computers next week. Could be coming to other platforms later. Nobody's announced that yet. There's sort of a Xbox exclusivity period for the time being, but wonderful, wonderful stuff. It's totally my kind of game. It's going to be at my end of the year list easily.
Would you recommend it for kids, or is it a little too scary?
So it has some, because of the sort of playing with terror, it has certain parts with the boy. When the boy doesn't do well, it goes real bad and it gets kind of gruesome. So I think unless you're the kind of parent who likes to tell really dark Eastern European folktales to your child when they go to bed, and there are parents like that, but if you're not that kind of parent, you might want to wait until they're at least 12 or 13, because it can be a little violent, but there's no language and you are not actively killing. It's more about the sense of it'll scare a little kid.
So play it first and then be the judge.
Right.
Well, moving on, we're now living in a time when people play a little fast and loose with other people's art, but we're also living in a time when the internet has made it a lot easier, a lot harder to get away with it. What happened this week with some stolen video game art?
It was interesting. I got some news today that some advertising group had taken a video game logo and made it their own to sell something. And I thought, wait, I just saw this story. There's been 3 of these this week. It began early this week with there was a game Firewatch. It's another little independent game, about $20. It's very beautiful. You're in a Utah-styled national park. So it's all beautiful oranges and purples. And the style looked so good that some Ford dealership in Massachusetts decided to steal its logo, its beautiful mountainside view, to advertise getting away from it all in a Ford Focus without asking for any attribution. The game developers were told about this on Twitter and remarked on it, saying this is pretty terrible. And that was followed by a Chinese hockey team. By the way, in case you were wondering, yes, China has hockey teams now. A team out of Beijing called Kunlun Red Star, which is part of the KHL, the Continental Hockey League, which appears to be mostly Eastern European, a lot of Russians. And they announced the first Chinese professional hockey team. And its logo, as we see here on the screen, is right next to a game, Guild Wars 2, has a big dragon that's in the shape of a 2. And so someone on Reddit noticed this, saying, wow, Guild Wars 2 sure has a hockey team now. How weird. There are so many similarities between these logos. It's hilarious. Just very specific ways where the spikes and the marks couldn't have just been copied by hand. There's certainly some photoshopping done to stretch it out and make it quote unquote unique, but the similarities are uncanny. And especially for a company that is clearly going to sell this logo on t-shirts and put it on stadiums and have it be part of corporate branding, it just seems sort of foolish for a company like that not to spend, I don't know, $1,000 to get a freelance guy to come up with a different dragon. And then the third example of this week was that there was a hotel, the Hotel Figueroa in Los Angeles, lifted an image from a Grand Theft Auto 5 fan site of the game Grand Theft Auto and tried to pass the image off as Los Angeles, which is going to show that video games now look incredibly realistic, so much so that a lazy hotel intern couldn't bother trying to figure out whether the photo was of a video game or of Los Angeles itself. That photo was busted by Eurogamer and then promptly taken down by the hotel with nary an apology. It's just interesting because this is 3 examples of copyright infringement that they show that there was the syndrome that the guy called infinite free content syndrome, was what one of the Firewatch developers said, because he said, okay, the story gets revolved. It's a cute blip in the headline game real quick. But this happens all the time if you make images on the internet, because people just see an image. They go to Google image search, especially for people who run blogs and news outlets. They'll type something in Google image search so they can have a fancy little image on their headline for all of their social medias and this and that. And they don't even attribute, they don't pay, and images get lifted and stolen. And I think it's a good reminder for people who create stuff that keep an eye out on your Reddit communities, because you may not have the time to be a lawyer and file DMCA takedown request on images, but your fans will keep you posted. And that's what happened in all these cases, that fans reached out and said, hey, game maker, I love your stuff. What happened here? So just more of the same. This is a story that will probably keep on going until somebody comes up with a much better reverse image search sort of system throughout the internet.
So is there... Are they just being tried in the court of public opinion, these places, or are the artists trying to get recourse for their stolen art?
In these cases, these are all a range of small fry companies. I feel like this hockey team thing could be huge because of the sake of merchandise. ArenaNet, who makes the game Guild Wars, they have an agreement with a Chinese company to publish Guild Wars in China. So therefore, there could be China against China litigation. Normally, if somebody from China lifts a thing and rips you off, you're kind of screwed as an American. That's a crazy wormhole of legal work. But China v. China kind of law could actually play out in such a way that logo may have to change, or there may have to be a payout. That's hard to say because Chinese law is just bonkers. But for the most part, it's really the court of public opinion, because most people aren't going to hire a lawyer, especially for something like as small as an email advertisement for a Ford Focus. It's really hard to imagine someone going to a prolonged lawsuit about that killing your video game's ability to sell. But who knows? There really could be someone who decides, you know what? Like the guy who made Minecraft. He's so rich. Who knows if he's the kind who will be like, you can't do that. You just misappropriated my asset. I will burn through 2 years in court just out of spite. I could see some rich nerd doing that before long.
Well, it strikes me that it's been a while that it's been relatively easy for people to to find any image on the internet. But it's getting easier and easier to find out someone that's using that image. And I think that I'm not sure. I know for my children, I don't think they're being taught what it means to have your own image. Like, I think that the speed at which the ease at which it is to find images on the internet, the way we're introducing technology into the classroom, I don't think the knowledge of copyright is really keeping up with that. I think that kids are, I think it's a parent's responsibility, I think, to tell your kids, hey, actually, you can't just steal that and put it on your own work. It's not something that you're born knowing necessarily, and it's not something that is being taught. So,
the internet, the speed of the internet and ethics education, at least in the United States, are not matched up. I've taught new media journalism to kids, and I find it's very important to stress the things that you can't do just because it's a click away. Anything about plagiarism, I think, is just on the rise as a result. Kids just go onto Wikipedia and well, that's my homework, those sorts of things. So that's a conversation that is going to grow, and hopefully public education gets on top of that, because that's a thing that gets reinforced in the way you create. You become a creative person in some sense in the educational system. You become a worker through the educational system. And so therefore you develop ethical responsibility, I think, in that sense. So there's parents, there's public school, there's public outreach. This is the kind of story that I think is that's going to be big for the next 5-10 years, as we all sort of feel out the rights that we do have and the rights that we think we have.
Well, it's also about ownership as well. I mean, when, we don't own the music that we stream on Spotify or Apple Music, but, they're not, my kids are not listening to it illegally anymore. It's perfectly legal, but they don't own it. But so it's, they have a different idea of what ownership is. And, you have to explain that to people.
Oh, digital ownership. What a tangled web you weave.
Exactly. Okay, well, let's get into more important news. There's a Street Fighter update. What can you tell us about it?
Street Fighter V, it launched in, I want to say April. It feels so long ago, and it launched badly. It was missing a lot of key features. It was missing characters. It was missing working online modes, and it was missing substantial single-player content. The idea being that when you load up Street Fighter on a home system, you expect to play against the computer for a while and have some fun by yourself before you get your butt kicked by internet people who are better than you. Street Fighter V is finally getting what's known as a story mode, in which cinematic scenes play out where characters shout at other characters. That's going to come out on July 1st. This is actually behind. They're supposed to put out a free update every month with characters that you can pay for and other stuff that's free. The story mode will be free to everyone. Because they missed the June update, they actually snuck in a second character, like a but wait, there's more kind of thing, like an infomercial. So now we're going to get the characters Balrog, who is the boxing character that was introduced in Street Fighter 2, and Ibuki, who I want to say was introduced in Street Fighter 3, but that could have been Street Fighter Alpha. There are so many versions. But those are both coming. The story mode is going to include a long plot, lots of shouting. I'm not sure if it's going to be any good. I've seen some mixed reactions from people who've seen leaked footage on the internet. But they are going to be teasing all of the other characters that are coming. There's more characters coming out once per month until the end of this quote-unquote season of Street Fighter V. So that'll be good news at the very least that's free. So if you paid for Street Fighter, you're finally getting this thing you paid for back in April. So that'll be fun. Whether it's going to be good enough, whether it'll be hard enough is yet to be determined. But I will definitely be playing it because I really like to do the single player thing where I mash buttons and pretend I'm any good, because I can't do that on the internet. They're very good. And I don't have those fancy joysticky $100 buttony. That's not me. I just do a quarter circle, a fireball comes out, and I squeal that I actually got something right.
Well, Kevin, who is the editor of this show, is giving you a lot of thumbs up to a lot of what you're saying, and he's very excited about it too. And
is he still wearing pants? How excited is he?
He's jumping up and down. He's wearing shorts, but
I am so glad for you and all of you.
He checked.
Sometimes gamers get excited about things and then pants disappear. I know. I've done this for 20 years. I've seen the worst. So I'm glad that everything has stayed relatively kosher over there.
So far, so good. Well, after the break, we'll cover what else is news on Ars Technica, not the gaming news. But first, let's take a minute to thank Zerto, the sponsor of this episode. Zerto is IT asset protection, disaster recovery, and cloud continuity for confident CIOs. Confidence can make or break businesses in today's IT world. It can mean the difference between hesitation and action, success or irrelevance. Zerto's cloud-based business continuity solutions arm today's CIOs and IT pros with the confidence to know their systems are ready for anything. With Zerto, you can recover from downtime, test new technology, and move to the cloud in a matter of clicks, all while maintaining business continuity. Zerto's virtual replication technology gives you the power to simplify your migrations, switch to new infrastructure faster, and get quicker ROI in a matter of clicks. Know your data is protected by breakthrough hypervisor-based software that puts the power of continuous replication at your fingertips. Migrate to the cloud with no disruption with enterprise-class software that empowers you to seamlessly and safely move virtualized workloads between public, private, and hybrid clouds. Get complete comprehensive data protection in one smart solution for BCDR across storage and hypervisors. Recover from any disruption with checkpoints every few seconds. Protect and recover files, VMs, and applications from any point in time. See for yourself how Zerto simplifies your data replication and disaster recovery, plus get a free readiness assessment for your data center at confidentcio.com. That's confidentcio.com, and we thank Zerto for their support. Ars Technica has long been one of my first stops for all the serious tech and culture news. Even not so serious topics like emoji are taken very seriously at Ars Technica. So let's take a look at a few of this week's stories. First, today, a brand new Google-funded undersea fiber optic cable funded by Google went online with the help of a group of Asian telecom companies. It's called Faster, and it stretches from Oregon all the way to Japan. The cable will boost trans-Pacific internet speeds with the ability to beam up to 60 terabits per second, 6% of which are just for Google. Ars Technica's John Brodkin writes that this is the highest capacity undersea cable ever built. He also says the undersea cable race is on and reminds us that Microsoft and Facebook have announced a 160 terabytes per second cable from U.S. to Europe scheduled for the fall of 2017. This is exciting, Sam.
It's just all I think about when I see stories like this is the next terrifying Bond film is going to be all about someone going underseas and knocking out that much data capacity with one snip. I mean, I'm sure it's a little more protected than that, but this is crazy the amount of speed we're talking about here and how much Google gets dedicated to itself. You know, it's getting an entire dedicated chunk of this cable. It's the most that they've had yet. It's going to really matter in terms of them continuing to grow in Japan and in China. I mean, we think about all of the things about when Google was first making its way into China and sort of backing away from its old do no evil kind of clause, the fact that it would play nice with the Chinese government and the Great Firewall of China. Well, gosh, when you set this much capacity to Asia, you definitely know that there's something happening there. That's a lot of users they're going to be able to serve, not only on a consumer level, but on a business level. You know, enterprise is going to matter for Google from here on out, and China is absolutely a growth sector in that respect. So expect this to be the beginning of Google saying, all right, hey, China, we can take care of everything for you. Forget Microsoft, forget everybody else. We have what you need. We can connect you to the Western markets with this Oregon cable for all the kinds of, who knows what's going to come down the pipeline in 5 to 10 years. The telemedicine of anything that requires real-time, incredible amounts of transfer for a giant company. Your Alibaba's here, and your, gosh, even 4chan is headquartered in Japan because of they've got some strange I'm just saying, there's just such a range of strange companies that are going to be interested in having that kind of dedicated service that Google's going to be able to provide. So this is huge in a way that I think is very easy to lose track of in the United States in terms of what Google is going to do to spread its wings in nations that don't necessarily rely on Google, that don't use Google as a verb. China's the biggest of those. So this is going to matter. This is going to matter in sort of a waves of news from here on out, 5-10 years from now. This is going to bear fruit much later than now.
I was super excited about it until you said 4chan was in Japan. We don't need 4chan to be any faster than it already is.
But those sorts of services where people are essentially saying, we're going to buck the trends, we are going to be the innovators, we're going to come from a different culture and redefine what internet interaction can be. And we're talking about a hologram and virtual reality future, which means we are actually really at a nice tipping point of someone being able to start from 0 to 50 zillion from anywhere in the world. And Google's now got itself another chip in its ability to say, hey, you should just get onto our service so that we can pull some of that money from you from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you want to impress some people at cocktail parties, here are some more details. It costs $300 million, and it's about 10 million times faster than your average cable modem. So bring those little tidbits out.
More than that, if you are served by Comcast. Hey-o! Thank you. Thank you.
You said you were going to have a costume change, but we haven't seen that yet.
I stayed right here because I've been so comfortable. I can go run real quick if you really need it.
It's okay. No, we care about what you say, not what you're wearing.
Here, I'll just do a pledge of allegiance during your next setup, as you set up the next story.
Okay. Peter Bright at Ars Technica has just put another nail in the coffin of the beloved headphone jack. He writes about a new development kit for hardware makers to make lightning versions of audio hardware. The development kit is called Cirrus Logic CS42L42 and appears to be the first step toward creating headphones that use the lightning jack. Sam, how attached are you to the audio jack?
We had a really great article. It was Andrew Cunningham, who's our head Apple guy at Ars Technica, who just really was able to sum up what it is about the 3.5 millimeter jack that is unlike any other. There's been no better replacement. There's been nothing to offer people more service. Headphones are these sorts of things that you just want to be able to plug into every device. Very few companies have gotten away with doing proprietary things with these. I think Microsoft tried this with the newest Xbox One controller, and people hated it. Nobody bought their headsets. They ended up with way too much unsold stock, and they went in and they revised the crap out of their controller to get a headphone jack in there. The market has spoken for so many years about how many devices work with that. But that being said, once these sorts of development kits go out, that's the beginning of the end, at least in terms of what Apple's doing. They need other companies on board if this is going to happen. There's no way Apple's going to do this by themselves. As much as they like to control their cases, their accessories. You know, Apple wants you to use Apple approved, but let's not kid ourselves. Apple's iPhone line lives and dies by other manufacturers being a part, jumping on board, and being excited because they do so much of the promoting in email advertising, in social media advertising, just in general social pressure. So if everybody has cool options for wireless, Bluetooth-ish, or whatever the heck Apple does for their headphones, people might bite. This is going to be a very hard sell. It's going to be very uphill. Apple has definitely gotten rid of important jacks and things that we love, like the floppy in our desktop towers, the Ethernet port in our MacBook Pros, that sort of thing. They have experience in telling people you don't need this anymore. But I think this will be the hardest sell because this has been really the most entrenched thing that Apple has faced off against in some time. So their success is really going to live and die by how the market responds. And these sorts of dev kit releases are absolutely their most important move if they think this has a chance in hell. And God, I hope it does not. I like my headphone jack. I'll take a little width in my device in order to have my headphones work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a battery issue. I mean, that's what you hear again and again. They're not trying to make the phone any thinner. It's for more room for a battery. But I don't know. The kits are available to developers who are part of the Made for iDevice program. The ire that this has raised in people.
Good choice of word, ire.
The ire, the eye anger or ire. You would think that Apple's actually taking the jack away from you. Like, you don't have to buy another iPhone. You do not have to buy this next iPhone. Stick with your iPhone.
I'm just going to tell Apple right now, jack off. Don't you put your hands on that. That's all for me. Stay away. What? What's wrong with that?
Thank you for going there. Let's move on to some serious news about emoji. Beth Mole, or I don't know if you know Beth, your colleague, if it's Mole or Mole. Is it Mole?
I like to call her Mole when she's being spicy, but we go with Mole.
Okay, Beth Mole from Ars Technica points us to a story about how emoji can make you eat healthier.
That's right. Turns out a supermarket decided that we are too stupid to find the produce ourselves and said, we're going to put very bright signage, specifically emoji signage, in order to help you find your fruits and your vegetables. And it worked. It was a Thursday report in the Journal of Nutrition, Education, and Behavior that found, after it analyzed grocery bills and found that shoppers weren't really, they weren't piling on crops to their full carts. They were swapping grocery items to make room for fruits and vegetables as a result of the signage. And it was that result that made them say that this actually matters, that people aren't just, they're saying, oh, I see these fruits and veggies. I'm going to put them in my bin first. I'm going to make room for them. So, and we're talking about emojis. These were large winking smiley faces giving a thumbs up, as opposed to There were some with fruits and vegetables. I don't know if they used the eggplant emoji or not. We didn't find out about that, but we did see that. I just think it's a very interesting way to take something that people are clearly interested in, which is a nonverbal communication that says a lot very quickly. I think that's what people really see in emoji as being an effective thing. People want to be as nonverbal as possible, as quickly as possible. They want to say things that words can't say. And I think flashing a piece of fruit is going to set off these things in your head that go, oh, right, I want that. And it's being presented in a way because supermarkets are set up in very specific ways to throw as many colors at us as possible. And produce can lose out on that. So if you can get some signage up in other spots that really digs into that nonverbal, quick communication, you can get people to eat healthier. So Lord knows if you should put these emojis around your house to get your children to do better things, but perhaps that will be the next case in this study.
That might be. There's also a new emoji called the shallow plate of food. Have you seen that?
I have never seen you so delighted in my life. A spark in your eyes for anyone who isn't watching. Megan just jumped out of her seat. I think her pants came off. I'm not sure.
I'm wearing a dress, so don't worry about it. I don't know why I am so amused by the shallow pan of food emoji, but yeah, and it's there. It is.
You find the shallow pan of food emoji doing in your life? How do you?
I don't know.
How do you push that?
Because I don't even eat those foods. I don't even eat chicken or steak. I eat the fish.
Colorful Creole-ness to it. I feel like it really speaks to that sort of New Orleans flavor that we all want in our lives. So I'm on board with you. Shallow pan of food 2016. That's my vote. I don't care who its vice president is. I'm voting that.
And that's why I have you on the show, because your support of my weird attachment to strange emoji. So thank you.
Happy to help.
And I know you have to go to a big crowded room full of people so you can hold your cell phone in front of them and take pictures so they can't see while you're listening to music.
Concert. I'm going to violate some rules and hopefully get this thing put into a sock. So this is the beginning of my 4th of July, and I couldn't think of a better way to start my 4th of July weekend than to say hello and goodbye to y'all. Pleasure to be on. I will talk to y'all very soon.
All right. Thanks so much, Sam. Sam's at arstechnica.com. You can find all his work. He's at Sam Red on Twitter. And TNT's fan of the day is Conky, who says, "This is how I catch up on the latest tech news from home. But my cat prefers watching live streaming kittens." I didn't know that you could do that. And Conky, I am so excited that you give your cat the bigger screen. Like, that's really, your cat has one. and you get the tiny screen. But yeah, tell us how to live stream kittens, because I think that my dog would really like that a lot. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT and we will find it. After the break, we'll talk about invisibility cloaks and I will read some more feedback from you. But first, let's take a minute to thank Atlassian, the sponsor of this episode. What if I told you there was a way to eliminate meetings, or at least make them shorter and less excruciating? Unleash your team's potential with collaborative software tools like HipChat and Jira, which will enable you to work better and communicate better together. Today, nearly anything is possible. If we can dream it, teams can build it. So how do you bring everyone together to create what's next? Team up with Atlassian, the makers of collaboration software that lets teams work and communicate better together. Jira lets you assign, track, and manage tasks for any project, no matter how complex. Confluence helps you create and share content, organize results, and bring team members up to speed. And with HipChat, your team can instant message or video chat from any device. Bitbucket is a powerful way to review and manage code in real time. We love the various Atlassian programs. Our engineering team uses Confluence to document equipment and work processes, and Jira for managing vendors and organizing tasks. For everything from planning events to working on serious operational issues, we tie our communications together with HipChat. Visit Atlassian.com and see how Jira, Confluence, HipChat, and Bitbucket give your team everything you need to organize, discuss, and complete shared work. Atlassian, helping teams everywhere team up to create what's next. If you watch regularly, then you know I like scarves. And finally tonight, Quartz reports that you can now buy a scarf that turns into an invisibility cloak. If you want to be invisible to the paparazzi, 28-year-old Saif Siddiqui created a scarf that uses light and reflection to disrupt a flash to make everything in the image go dark. It costs $388, and several celebrities are already using it. I will not. I don't mind if you take my picture. Anyway, I have some more feedback from you. Joseph from London writes, just a quick email to clarify Ian's statement on today's show regarding traveling in the UK. I travel weekly between London and Edinburgh on British Airways, and domestic travel does not require an ID or passport. I use mobile check-in and go through security with my boarding pass, and when boarding the plane, I'm only asked to see my boarding pass. This applies to any domestic travel within the UK. It does seem odd that there isn't an ID check, but this has been the policy for as long as I can recall. And he also added with a follow-up email that it might vary between different airlines, but that's been his experience on the airlines that he's flown. And Chris and many of the rest of you have asked about this spinning globe that we have here. It's the MOVA Cube, and you can find it at MOVA International. Here it is. And we will stick a link to that in the show notes today. Tomorrow's guest will be Becky Worley, and we are excited to have her. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv or leave us a short voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW. You can also hit us up on Twitter at Tech News Today. Many of you participated in our annual Twit audience survey at the beginning of this year. Thank you so much for providing helpful feedback on our programming and our advertising practices. Our partner, PodTrack Analytics, is currently asking avid podcast fans, including Twit listeners, to chime in and provide anonymous information about the trends and needs of podcast audiences. If you're interested in participating in PodTrack's audience panel, visit podtrack.com/panel for more information. Find all the ways to subscribe to our show at twit.tv/TNT. And if you want to tweet at me, I am at Megan Morrone. Thanks to Kara and Greg and Kevin and Tony and all the folks who help us produce this show every single day. And thanks to you for sticking around and talking tech with us today. We'll see you tomorrow.
High five. High five yourself. Oh. Clap. Yeah.